Welcome to Taipei, Taiwan, where I am huffing and puffing as I make my way to the top of Elephant Mountain. Outside of the food in the city center, this is my favorite activity in the city to get away from the bustling streets, enjoy nature, and take in these absolutely incredible views. It takes about 600 steps and a little over at half an hour to 45 minutes to reach this viewing platform at the top of the trail, where you get unbelievable views of the city. Having done this both in the morning and at sunset, I definitely recommend the latter to watch the city turn from day to night.
잠깐만. 가져가. 찾아봐.
After burning all of those calories on the mountain, I was ready to eat, so I headed over to the Raohe Street Food Market, which is probably the most famous one in Taiwan, so expect it to be really crowded, but it is a never-ending street of all sorts of famous food items you can try. Be sure to research the best stops before you go, but I was here for the Taiwanese beef buns that are filled with that beautiful black pepper beef, onions, and other goodness. While I was in Taipei, I also made a day trip to Jiufen, which is a beautiful mountainside village that actually inspired Spirited Away, and the views at night are breathtaking, so it's worth a one-night stay before heading out of the city. Now today's flight is going to be on Eva Airways at the Taipei International Airport, and we start off at the Eva Air Lounge, which is actually one of my favorites. The lounge itself is long and narrow with lots of seating on the side overlooking the terminal and a large communal area at the end, which I'll show you in a second. But my first pit stop was over here to the right at the shower rooms. I love how they all have a unique theme, and it tells you which rooms are occupied so you can easily find a shower. I cannot state enough how this perk is so amazing after a long day exploring to get freshened up before your flight. Now, what set this lounge apart for me is the pretty large buffet area that both had Asian flavors as well as American cuisine, so there was a little bit of something for everyone. It also felt a bit like outer space, but also kind of like you're in a library, so it was a very cozy place to relax before my flight. Today I am flying just around 2 hours to Shanghai, China on a Eva Airways 777-300ER. This is a pretty large aircraft for the short flight, but it must be full of cargo or passengers on a normal day, because today I was up for quite a surprise. Now, China had just recently opened for tourism at the time of filming last year, so maybe that's why the loads were light, but I found myself as the only passenger in business class. I guess I could have chosen any seat today, but I stuck with my window seat. Now, this is a slightly older product. It's a reverse herringbone seat, and the first thing I noticed is it didn't have quite the legroom as newer products like that on Cathay Pacific. Now, while this is perfectly suitable for a short 2-hour flight, I want to mention that this same aircraft is what Eva Airways uses for those 15-16 hour flights to far destinations in the Americas. While still comfortable, it's just not up to par with some of the newer products that have more privacy, more footroom, larger IFE screens, but being the only person on board today, the service was still exceptional. I enjoyed a healthy portion of champagne for a pre-departure drink, and you gotta love the hospitality in Asia as our ground crew waves us goodbye and a safe-wards journey onwards towards Shanghai. Now, flying the 777-300 is always a treat thanks to those large GE90 engines, so we'll listen to them roar as we take off from Taipei. Now, being a pretty short flight today, I wasn't going to sleep, so I popped open the TV and put on the Mario Brothers movie, which I had never seen before. Perfect for a 2-hour flight. But once we got in the air, service promptly began with lunch. Today's service was on one tray, which I don't mind for a short flight, and I've come to not expect too much on these regional business class flights. But it was still nicely presented, and the fried chicken and rice was tasty, along with fruit and appetizer, ice cream, and the star of the show, our heart-shaped garlic bread. Now, after service, I just walked around the cabin to admire the fact that I was only one on board. It brought me back to a couple years ago during COVID when flight loads were very empty. So nowadays, it was kind of surreal to get this experience, as pretty much every other flight I've been on recently was near 100% full. I admired some details on the seats here in Eva Airways business class. While not as modern, like I said, it's still very classy and the service is exceptional. As we headed into China, I had an arrival beverage and watched all of the videos about customs and immigration. Being my first time into China, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was staying on just a 4-day stay in Shanghai, so I didn't have to get a visa beforehand. I could just show my onward ticket to another country, in this case, which would be Singapore, and I was allowed to enter Shanghai for up to 144 hours. They just asked me a few questions about my plans in Shanghai, where I wanted to stay, and I had everything printed out ahead of time to show the customs officer, which made it a very seamless arrival experience. I had a great 4-day stay in Shanghai, which, like Taiwan and other destinations I'm traveling to, I'll go into further detail on my Instagram page and Reels. But the highlights of Shanghai were definitely the beautiful Yu Garden, which you have to see at night as it lights up. The bazaar that surrounds the gardens is just absolutely breathtaking, and I still can't believe this was a real place. The other highlight of Shanghai is, of course, the views from the Bund, which surround the downtown core of Shanghai with some of the world's tallest skyscrapers. Now, I understand China and Shanghai are very crowded, but I could not believe how many people came out to watch the city light up on just a typical weekday night. But I can see why. The city lights reflecting on the water were incredible, and this view is like something out of a sci-fi movie. So I highly recommend Shanghai if you get a chance to visit. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.